Welcome to Whachacha's Tabletop World, the channel devoted to the love of board gaming. My name is Sweetness Whachacha, and today is my overview and thoughts on Blob Party. Blob Party is a cooperative party game for 4 to 8 players, which lasts roughly 15 to 20 minutes. It's a game that's played over 7 rounds, and the goal is to become one big blob.
Setup is easy. You will divide the block of clay into equal parts and give some to each player. It isn't important how accurate you are. Then each player gets a player board in their color, a googly eye in that color, which you will place on your clay. Grab a pen and place the deck of categories and words within easy reach of the players.
Now, as I said, the game takes place over 7 rounds. You have 7 rounds to become one big blob, in which case you win the game. The sooner you do that, the greater the victory. If you fail to do it by 7 rounds, well then, of course, you'll lose.
Gameplay is very simple. After choosing a start player, that player will be the first to turn over a category, and then draw 3 cards, choosing one to match with the category and discarding the other 2. Then each player will secretly write their answer, hoping to write an answer the others are also writing. Then, when everyone is done, you reveal your answers. Anyone who matched will join the blobs together and become a single player. That's it. That is a round. You will do the same thing 7 times, or less if you all match. But let's take a look at a second round so you can see how the players would vote now. So in this example, these players would submit a single vote, as would these, and these players would submit their own answer. Then they would reveal and hopefully match other blobs.
Now, remember, it's easier to match people early on because there's a lot of people and you're likely to match someone. However, as the game goes on, there's less and less people and less answers, meaning it's less and less likely that you'll match someone. However, it is in another way a little bit easier because you can zero in on that person's particular taste a little easier. So the game is harder in some ways and easier in other ways from the beginning to the end, and vice versa. So what are my thoughts? Well, this game is kind of part of this trend of party games and things, which I've seen lately. I've inadvertently seemed to have reviewed several of these, even though I haven't reviewed too many games so far. But essentially, it goes along with like this groupthink idea. You want to come up with the most common answer. Now, there are games that went against this kind of idea, like whether in a classic sense, you would have like Taboo, where you can't, thinking similarly is bad. And then, of course, like Just One was a very popular party game where you would trying not to think like everybody else. So this idea of thinking like everyone else and herd mentality, green team wins, etc., and the opposite of it, like Just One, Taboo, that sort of thing, is not a new idea, but it's interesting the way they've chosen to done it here. But before we get too far in it, let's talk about, as I like to usually talk about first, and that's the art and components. Again, a very inexpensive party game, and the components sort of reflect that. However, I really love the clay. Now, it didn't seem like completely necessary to have the clay, but it's super cool. It's like, you can very easily tell, and it's like satisfying to like glob onto somebody else. You have your little googly eye, and you just push it together, and you can very easily see who's on whose team. So it's as a mechanism and to decrease bandwidth and make it easier to understand, it works quite well. And the other sort of side benefit, and I don't think it can be understated, is that like it's just plain fun. Like a lot of times people, like if you're waiting for somebody to go, you're just like sitting and staring at the ceiling. Some people can take out their phone and text or check their text messages or whatever. And that's kind of annoying. But this actually kind of is like, it's like, oh, you haven't written your answer? No problem. I'm going to be playing around with this. And it gives people like a little bit of time and ability to showcase their own artistic talents, especially like, while you're setting up and stuff, everybody's kind of going in and molding their clay into like little starfish or a little eye to put their, like a little eyelid to put their eye in or whatever. And I really like that quite a bit. Again, you get a bunch of cards and the nice little dry erase boards. Pretty standard stuff for a party game. Again, I never think there's enough cards in any of these. However, there's like, I don't know, like 30 or so categories. So with the other cards, that's quite a bit of different, exponentially just gets bigger and bigger, of course, because you can add all those cards versus the categories. So there is quite a bit of things in there, but yeah, I always feel like you could use a little more. The theme is also I actually really love the theme. I mean, it's weird. It's like, it's weirdly makes sense. I mean, it makes complete sense in some ways. Like you're just a bunch of little weird blobs, and you want to be part of you want to have a little party. You want to be in with everybody else, mushed in everybody else. And it makes complete sense. I think it's good for kids and stuff to get like, oh yeah, that's funny or cute. The art is very adorable little art, but yeah, it's like weirdly makes perfect sense to make you understand this game. Oh, I'm trying to be a blob with everybody else. Perfect, I get it completely. Like it's a unique theme, and it really, like I said, really works for this game. Now let's look at my mantra for party games, which is always that, I only play party games really with non-gamers. So I always need a party game to be quick, like very easy to explain and to teach, and quick to play. And it has all of those things. It takes about 5 seconds to explain. You can even play the first round, push everybody together, and then say, okay, you see what happened? That's what we're trying to do. Even if you didn't and you just played the 7 rounds, like it'd be very, very easy. So that's a really nice thing. Again, like it plays in 10 or 15 minutes, very, very quick to play, and it's easy to understand. Now, the downside of that is that there's not a lot of choices. You're just trying to write something that someone else will put, which is not the most exciting choice in the world, but it's for a party game, and for this weight and for this time, it's a great one to slot into my my party game bag that I bring to my relative's house. Now, a couple of other quick things real fast to talk about. Number one, when you're part of the same blob and you are both on the same team now and you only have one answer, I didn't have a problem with this, and I wouldn't really foresee it in my group, but some groups might have a little problem, and like if two players are butting heads like, no, I'm on your team, but this is the answer clearly, and the other one says, no, this is the answer clearly. So I could see some friction there that you only can answer for one, but it's so light and quick, I find that probably that isn't going to be a problem, but just be aware that it could be. I do also really actually love to laugh. I think it's kind of fun to laugh at the other players, give them a gentle ribbing for like, what? Well, how could you put that answer? This is clearly the right answer, or somebody that like really everybody understood was going to write one thing because it's in their personality and they didn't. And then you're like, oh my God, how you could do that? So there are some laughs and things there. I do really like the idea that it turns it on its head in terms of like, like if you've got everybody in part of the blob and there's one person that's outside of there, it's very difficult because you have to match the exact answer 1 and 1. However, you can dial your guess in or whatever whatever you write your word based on their own taste. Like we had somebody that like really loves King Kong, and we had a couple of category and a word that I was like, okay, this person has to write King Kong, and so it just made it a little bit easier. So it's kind of it turns it on its head. It's like easier in some ways in the beginning, and harder in other ways at the end, and vice versa. So I really think that's kind of like a nice little elegant thing that happens in the game, which I think is kind of cool. One thing I do want to say though is that like you would think that it's very easy. Like it seems like how could you not win very easily? But it's actually it's actually the choices, the categories, and the words actually are very difficult. Number one, you pick from 3 cards and then you put that card down. But the games that I played of it, like sometimes you'd have cards you'd be like, oh my, like technology was the clue, and flower, like flower was like the best thing out of 3 I had. And I'm like, I have no idea what to write, So it can be quite challenging that way, and also like some of the clues and things. So I guess I found that either you win this immediately or you maybe just lose it like terribly. And I think that just kind of depends on what categories and things you'll get. For instance, like category sports. Like we had like when we played, we had basketball, and it's like no one here can name more than a single basketball player. So all of us were in a blob immediately. We win the game. So you get something like sports, where there's not a lot of information known, where people only know a little bit, and you're gonna just immediately all have the same answer because you just don't know that many things. But then you might get something like food or travel, and the answers can be all over the map, if you'll pardon my pun. And so then it can be quite difficult to dial in. So it's interesting, but not too complex. And lastly, I just want to mention, because I always really like to pair movies and food and things like that, but this could be really kind of fun to just, you have a double feature, the original Blob, the 80s Blob, which is one of my favorite all-time movies, some of the greatest effects ever, and make some Jell-O, have some fun with it, have a little theme night, play a little Blob Party, maybe some other things or whatever. But yeah, that's one of the things I just wanted to mention. So this is a very enjoyable little game. It's very fun. I love the components, the clay and stuff, very, very cool. Fits right in with that little genre of herd mentality, just one, green team wins, those sort of things. Not a ton of choices, but good for some good little filler type of game to end the night, or to to mix up your party night with your non-gamer friends. And that's Blob Party. So I hope you enjoyed that review. Please comment below what you think about it. And for now, I gotta roll.